Welcome. So I have a question for all of you. Are you a Prince person? Or are you a Michael Jackson person? So we're gonna do it. You gotta think about it. Take a moment, this is a big question, right? So Prince people? Good, I like this. Go Prince. Okay, Michael Jackson people? Okay, I have given this talk now. This is my fourth time, and I have to say that Michael Jackson always wins. I was surprised by that, but I will confess that I'm a Michael Jackson person too. Because every time it comes on when you're at a wedding, it's don't stop till you get enough. I gotta get up and dance. That's the thing. So, but this is the question they ask in my safety, health, and environment. Come on, you can come in, you can sit down or hang out there. Whatever you want, come on in. You can stand, but there's seats. If you guys want to move in, you can, or you can wander in, no problem. We're talking about Prince versus Michael Jackson. That's all you miss. So you don't have to worry. Do you have a vote? Prince's Michael Jackson? Prince versus Michael Jackson. So you just have to pick one. Michael, okay, all right. That was the consensus. See, so now you're caught up. This is good. This is good. So in the safety, health, and environmental department where I work, when you're new, they do this 20 questions thing, and one of the questions is Prince or Michael Jackson. And I don't know, and Penny's here, she actually runs that department. Do you have statistics on who wins on that?
I think I've been tracking them.
Thank you. So, but if you're an analytical engineering type, and perhaps also a professional musician, you're going to see a question like that and definitely overthink it, and that's what I did. So I had this great vision about a 5-year-old boy who played the congas in the family band, and he was okay, but one day they gave him a microphone, and when that happened, he quickly upstaged his older brothers, becoming an almost overnight sensation, and a man who always wins the Prince versus Michael Jackson poll. He just knew from a young age how to connect to an audience. It was just a natural, you could say. In contrast, Prince, there's an article that a woman named Ruth Blatt wrote in Forbes magazine called "Improve Your Charisma and How Prince Did It." So Prince, he's a great musician. We know that. He's wonderful. He gets signed to a label. His marketing team is like, okay, we're ready. We've issued your CD. It went out there. And they're like, we're going to get ready for your tour. Let's go. Okay, go play for us. So he does this little performance. Marketing team is just like, they come out of that room shaking their heads and telling him, I'm sorry, we can't let you go on tour. He was that bad. Yeah, everything was there, right? Like, he's a good musician. It was a good album. But they couldn't put him in public, and they're like, this won't help us sell your album. So back to the drawing board. Second album comes out. He plays. They're like, I don't know. Rick James decides to give him a chance. Do we all know who Rick James is? What did he write? Anyone? Super Freak, that's right. Super freaky, right? So Rick James, of all people, says, okay, this Prince guy, sure, we'll give him one chance, okay? And he goes on tour with Rick James, and Rick James is feeling sorry for him after the first couple of shows. It's just, this is pathetic, he's just playing, and nobody cares what he's doing. It doesn't matter how good his music is. And that's when Prince does something amazing. He realizes he had a deficit. He needed to pick up some skills, and he started watching his heroes and figuring out what did they have that he lacked. And he started incorporating audience call and responses and slick dance moves, and it turned into this awesome, cool guy thing that Prince had going on. Until by the end of his career, the end of his life, just like Michael Jackson, his ability to perform was a part of his legacy. So I ask you again, in terms of your relationship being up here in front of people, are you really more of a Prince person or more of a Michael Jackson person? Prince people. Now we're all Prince people. Michael Jackson people. There you go. I might ask you to volunteer later.
First one to volunteer. First one with the hand raised.
This is a self-selecting audience, right? So I knew you guys would all be Prince people. But in my years of voice teaching, I've noticed that, right? You know, some people are just natural, they're extroverted. Some people, it doesn't come naturally, and that's okay. It seems to me that there's really one thing that separates the two camps and really makes a difference. This is like the theme for the day, right? It's this like slideshow changes. It's this word. Here. Here. And it's not that the princes of the world all have stage fright and the Michael Jacksons of the world don't. What I finally figured out is that the Michael Jacksons of the world, the extroverts, they might feel fear, but they react to it very, very differently. They get those butterflies in their stomach, and they're not seized by it. It excites them, you know. They get more charismatic. They light up. Their jokes get funnier, you know, not mine, but everybody else's, you know. So it's an amazing thing. And the other camp, they tend to focus on the fear. They start to get overwhelmed by it and consumed by it, and it distracts them from what they're really there to do. And I told you I didn't always understand this. I thought at some point as a performer, as a singer, that I'd get on stage and I'd be finally free of my stage fright. It doesn't happen. It's never left me. But when I was in opera school, I was seeking that answer. I asked my voice teacher. She told me, don't worry about it. And that didn't help me. She told me to breathe deeper. And that actually did help me a little bit. But the problem is when you're a singer, you're actually supposed to be breathing really deeply. So, you know, it wasn't like really I had to add that to my gig, you know. So, but then I went to acting class. And they started talking about motivation. And they're always asking you, what's your character's motivation? What's your character's motivation? You know? And so they told us that the moment that you get up on stage, right before you step onto that stage, what you're focused on isn't, okay, my hands are sweaty and I'm kind of shaky, like, is everybody going to figure that out? Like, what are they going to think of me? The thing that you have to focus on is your character's motivation. Why did Giulietta is about to get up on that balcony? Who is she expecting to see? How long has Eurydice been in Hades? And what does she feel that first moment that she hears Orfeo's voice in the distance? It's their passion, your character's passion, that fights your own personal fear. The only way to fight an emotion, you can't get rid of it, right? It's with another emotion, a stronger emotion. And lucky for you, you're not opera singers. You're thinking about public speaking. And your motivation is intrinsic to you. It's not some random characters that somebody else wrote about. It's your own reason for being up in front of people. Why did you decide to be here in the first place? Bill Hooptrup wrote a book. It was called Your Perfect Presentation. And he has a very succinct way of saying this. He says, get over yourself. Get over yourself. This isn't about you, it's about you. It's about the audience. What drove you to here today? What made you want to get up in front of your boss at the meeting or in front of a SUI conference and talk to an audience? And it works like a charm. So I gave this talk at the national conference, and when I applied to speak, that was fine. But at some point, I got accepted, and when I read the acceptance letter, I was really excited. I'm like, great, that's wonderful. Until I started thinking about it and realized, wait a minute. I just volunteered to speak in front of an international audience on the topic of public speaking. And I can't think of anything that would subject me to more criticism than that. Why am I doing this? And I had to go back to my motivation. And I had to think, why am I doing this? And the answer came very quickly. Because in my career, I've seen many times women who've had wonderful ideas. Women who weren't heard. Not because their ideas weren't good, but because of the way they packaged them. And that's not okay. And it makes me angry. And so if I come up here and I share the lessons that I've learned with some of you, and if I screw up, if I'm doing something distracting with my hands, or if I say like too much, or whatever I do that's wrong, and you notice it, and you say, that took away, and you take that home with you, and you incorporate that into your performance or your speech, your meeting, when you're talking in a meeting, if it changes the way that people view you and you get heard, then I've still succeeded. And just like that, I had the strength, again, to get up here and do the speech. So, fear. Use your passion to get over your own sense of fear. A lot of times people ask me, so was engineering school a lot more difficult than music school? And they're always surprised when I tell them, no, not at all. They were both really challenging, very different, but really challenging. My day as a singer in school began at 6 a.m. and I'd head down to the practice spaces and hope to get a really good one. And this was even before breakfast, before coffee, because a singer does not drink coffee before they sing. And you start with your warm-ups. Has anyone ever been choir? You guys know the warm-ups, right? There's some pianist, right? You're your own pianist when you're sitting in that room by yourself and you do some warm-ups, okay? And you're like, Z, V, Z, U, Z, V, Z, da, da, Z, V, Z, U, Z, V, Z, da, da, all the way up to the top of your vocal range, all the way down. And then you do another one. Ooh, 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 ba, ba, all the way down, all the way up. Ad nauseum, right? Consonants, syllables, vowels, notes, scales that I have sung probably millions of times in my life. Incredibly boring stuff, right? You do that for about 15, 20 minutes. Only then are you ready to take out your sheet music and start looking at that aria. That aria could probably be maybe 3 minutes long. And you're going to spend about 20 minutes working on it. And that day, if it happens to be maybe newer in your repertoire, you might spend that whole 20 minutes just working on one page, or perhaps maybe even 4 measures. Measure being just non-using people. But practice was our life. That's what we knew. And because of this, it always amazes me, now that I'm an engineer, that engineers will spend, right, we all do this, like we spend weeks like making our PowerPoint presentations, just killer. And then when it comes time to present, we take it out, right, and we're getting ready, we've got 15 minutes before that meeting, and we start running through what we're going to say. Have you ever done it? I've done it, right? Come on. The PowerPoint presentation is a prop. It's really great at taking complicated information and condensing it into a visual image. It's not the credibility. It's not able to sell anything. It's you. It's your conviction, your power to say what you really believe and what you think needs to be done. That's going to convince anyone of anything. So for practicing, I just recommend you start reversing the ratio. Spend less time on your PowerPoint presentations and more time on working on what you're going to say. And when you practice, it's not just reading, it's not writing it down and right? You stand up out of your office chair, shut the door to your office, or find a space somewhere, say it out loud over and over again. Maybe once a day if that's how you work. If you don't want to really sit there for hours doing the same thing over and over again. And don't just practice saying it, practice how you're going to say it. How you're going to stand, what your inflection is, where your hands go. Things that I'm going to talk about today. All those aspects incorporate into your practicing. You'll be amazed at the difference that it makes. If it's really important to you, then you probably want, after you get very comfortable with what you're going to say, you're going to want to get yourself a few people to try it on and then get some feedback. You might want to videotape yourself. You're wondering why there's a videotape here. That's for me. I'll give it to you guys too if you really want it. But you can videotape yourself and watch it and decide, you might be able to see a lot in that. If you really need to practice, and this is really something you want to get good at, you just have to do it all the time. So you could join something like Toastmasters, for example. The point is practice. Do it. Way more than you think. Posture. This is the section on, I'm going to get into a few items that have to do with body language. So when Sheryl Sandberg said lean in, she did not mean slouch in, right, ladies? But we do it. Don't we? Especially like right now, like it's that 1:15, like post lunchtime, and like you're in a meeting and you're sitting in those comfy office chairs and you just kind of want to settle into them. Posture in the opera world is a huge deal. All the time you hear from your voice teachers, sternum lifted, shoulders back, sternum lifted, shoulders back. And you can try it now. I mean, in the opera world, you wouldn't even use the back of a chair, right? You would always sit on the edge of your chair and sit up nice and tall. And the reason for that, posture does three things for us, really. The first thing is that it allows us to take a deeper breath. And for the opera singer, that is a huge deal, right? So I can sing a much longer phrase if I have more air inside of me. It matters to you too, and we'll get to that in the next slide. The second thing it does for you is that it makes you feel more confident. In fact, I was just talking to my sister-in-law last night, and she was telling me how much more confident you feel when you're wearing a suit or you're dressed up and you're wearing clothes that's really well tailored. Imagine what happens if you're wearing that same clothing and you all of a sudden start standing up straighter. It's the same effect. And actually, because have you guys seen the Amy Cuddy Power Poses TED Talk? Some of you have. You might want to look it up if you haven't. It's pretty neat. But because of her, we start having some evidence that posture actually does something to you physically that makes you more confident. It really works. And the third thing it does, I'll tell you a story. So years ago, I had an internship in downtown Chicago at a nuclear power consulting firm. And it was in one of those high-rises, and every day at rush hour, just like everybody else, you get out of your high-rise and you walk from downtown all the way to the metro station or back to your happy suburb. So just like those pictures of New York City where you see the sidewalks and they're just flooded with people, and just totally crowded, that's exactly how it is in Chicago too. So I was walking down the streets and I thought it would be fun to do this little experiment. So I started walking down the streets with that posture, slumping like this. And people were kind of crowding me and bumping into me and stuff. And then at some point a guy shoulder checked me, literally shoulder checked me. And at that point I thought, okay, phase one of this experiment over. Phase two, sternum lifted, shoulders back, started walking like this. That's all I changed. And all of a sudden, people parted like waves. And I walked through. Like, I'm 5 feet tall. A little taller, right? I'm getting 1 inch. There's nothing intimidating about me, right? And yet here I am on the streets of Chicago, and people are just making space for me. Like, I'm, on a mission, and they know it. When you use good posture, it makes a huge difference in the way your audience sees you, in the way your boss sees you, in the way that all the people around you view you. In a very subconscious way. They don't look at you and say, oh, she's looking taller today, right? That's not how it works. It's on a visceral level, which is great, because if you happen to be walking down the streets at night, you can use the same technique and all of a sudden feel and probably be a lot safer. So the thing is, you can't just say, okay, I'm giving a talk at 3 o'clock and I'm going to have really good posture. It doesn't work like that, right? Because you're not going to be thinking about posture when you're talking. You've got to fix it. You've got to fix it forever. So how do you fix posture? Because probably even I do not have perfect posture. It's not what it was when I was in opera school. So those muscles tend to atrophy. And the only way to get away from that is, right, you have to exercise them. So you have to constantly correct your posture. And probably the best way to do that is think of a trigger. Something in your life that happens all the time. It could be your cell phone buzzing, get an email ding at work, maybe if you live in my house, every time your daughter uses that kind of whiny voice that drives you insane. Trying to make lemons out of lemonade. So think of some trigger that's going to remind you to correct your posture every time you hear it or see it. Got a trigger? Tell the person next to you. Tell the person. Go ahead. Did you think of one? Could be the one that I just used. That's fine. All right. Does anyone have one they want to share? Does anyone have one they want to share? Can you come up with one? Oh, that's good. Does anyone have another one?
What did she say? What did she say?
She said whenever you're listening to music on the radio and a new song comes on. Oh, that's good. I like that. Anything else? Anyone want to share? Okay, so remember your trigger, right? You're going to use it to fix your posture. You're going to fix it forever. You'll thank me when you're 90. You won't remember me. Hands. We use them every day, all the time. And then suddenly we get up in front of an audience and they're like these awkward approaches. I'm 100% Italian, so I actually just use them constantly. But you don't need to. That's the wonderful thing about public speaking. You can actually just take them and put them at your sides and leave them there and have your talk, and it won't be distracting and it will look fine. And because you just fixed your posture, right, your hands just lay there very nicely. Now if you slump like this, you start like, your knuckles start pointing right towards the audience, and you kind of like have this chimpanzee thing, right? So you want to have good posture because it just leaves a place for your hands that's really comfortable. And then when you end up gesturing very open, in a very natural way. So this just becomes your default pose, and you're welcome to gesture. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's some things that we do with our hands that actually end up tripping us up. And a really common one is this: clasping our hands in front of us. And one of the problems with that is that any kind of gesture like this literally closes you off from the audience, and you lose connection that way. And then when you start gesturing, you end up gesturing kind of like this. I see it a lot, like you're in a little tiny box, and that gets very distracting. Another variation on this is this one. In the music world, we call this fig leafing, for obvious reasons. And for obvious reasons, it draws attention to the wrong area, just like the fig leaf, so you don't want to do it, okay? So hands at your side. The reverse of that is hands behind your back, and you don't want to do that either, because it looks like you're hiding something. And then what happened to my nice sternum lifted and shoulders back? I just ruined my posture. So just hands at your side, relaxed, and that's all you need to do. And since you've practiced with your hands at your side, so your body just knows that it can do this and stay as your default.
Is folding hands equal to the closing hands?
Folding hands? Yes. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I haven't seen this too much, but yes, you don't want to do that. You were at Celeste Mergen's presentation this morning. Did you guys hear that story when she was talking about when she met with the women, the cutters, and she was talking to them, right? And when as she was talking, they were all like this, right? Their body language was telling her in a very direct way, we don't want to hear what you have to say, right? And the minute that she made a connection, I betcha everyone in that room started letting go of that pose. So yeah, that's a very good point. Breathing. Now, you all know how to breathe. You don't need to be thinking about breathing when you're up in front of an audience. You've got enough to think about, okay? I know that. But the singer's breath is amazingly powerful. The singer's breath is a very deep breath that you can use to calm yourself when you're feeling overwhelmed by fear. A deep breath will stop that stress response that happens when you start getting nervous. And so you can use it anytime you feel, when you're thinking about public speaking or really anything that you're afraid of, right? Anytime you're feeling high stress, you can use the singer's breath to help calm that down. The thing is, the singer's breath is different than the breathing you probably do day in, day out. It's different than most of the yoga and meditation breaths that I've ever done or learned. It is the breath of childhood. And we're going to do, see, babies are born just knowing how to breathe, right? And then we forget as we become adults. So this is a lecture I did all the time when I was teaching voice. So we're going to do a little anatomy lesson in a moment. Okay. This is your trachea. This is your windpipe. It pulls in air into the lungs. Now your lungs are these two kind of bags that are just floppy. They're not muscles. They can't move themselves. They have, they're just, think of them as bags. But attached to them is your rib cage. And all around your rib cage, you have these muscles. Does anyone know what these are called? Pardon?
No.
No.
Oh.
Close though. Remember that. I'll ask another question. Okay. Anybody else? Is anyone maybe back ribs? Those are intercostal muscles. Those are the same muscles that you eat when you're having ribs. They're so tasty, right? A lot of fat on them. These muscles are great. So breathing can't happen with your lungs. Breathing has to happen with these muscles attached to your lungs because breathing happens in a vacuum. These muscles pull a vacuum and air rushes in. So go ahead and take a moment and think about your breathing and realize, I'm not sucking air in. This may be hard to visualize, but trust me, I'm not. I promise. But the intercostal muscles expand your rib cage. They do this horizontal expansion of the rib cage. And so as they do that, right, the air rushes in. And that's great. You get a ton of breath in that way, a ton of air in. But that's only half the story. That's only part of the muscles that we use to breathe. The thing is, we know corsets are a fad that have left our world for centuries. However, we still probably have created our own biological corset. We don't often use our diaphragm to breathe. I gave a little answer, I'm sorry. So here comes the next one. Where is it? Do you know? So here, I'll show you. So here it is. This is my stick person drawing of a diaphragm. It's actually shaped like an upside down bowl. And it bisects your body in half. It's a sheet of muscle. And when it moves, it flattens like a pancake. And it goes up and down. Up and down, up and down. And when it does that, it elongates the lungs and air rushes in again. So you get expansion in both directions. You get expansion this way from the intercostal muscles, and you get expansion this way from the diaphragm. And the thing that happens is when this muscle pushes down, what do you have here? Intestines, kidney, liver, all that viscera down here. Your diaphragm pushes against it, and where does that stuff all go? You've just filled your muscles with it. It goes out. That's exactly right. And this is why a lot of us have stopped breathing with our diaphragm for the most part. Because we're taught our stomachs are supposed to be flat. That's not the reality, right? Our stomachs are round. When you breathe, air rushes in. It rushes in here, and your diaphragm pushes, and your stomach goes out. And this is how kids breathe. Because they haven't been conditioned yet to hold their abdominal muscles in. That is a very deep breath. So we're going to try it. Again, when you breathe, you want to start with good posture. Because if you have good posture, your rib cage is already expanded. the next thing you want to do, you may want to stand up for this, but I'm a short person, so maybe sit for a minute. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is put a hand over your belly button. And you can either put a hand here to kind of keep your sternum lifted, or put one behind your back so you can really feel the expansion here. You can try it both ways. But you're going to breathe in and breathe out and really feel that you're filling your stomach with air. Think of it that way, right? Filling your stomach with air. If it's working, you can stay seated. If it's not working, I recommend that you stand up and try it. Is it working for you? Okay. But just in doing this, even now, I feel a lot calmer. I hope you do too. Is anyone having trouble? Who wants to be my guinea pig? Is it working for you?
It's hard because I did ballet, and so I trained myself not to.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. Can I help you?
Sure.
Do you mind? I know this is
Go ahead.
see, but this is public speaking, right? Like you have to go up and make a splash in front of an audience. No, I won't make do you have a dance? Yeah, I do want you to stand up, but I won't make you say anything. I would like to make you dance, but I won't do that. Okay, so sternum lifted, shoulders back.
This way?
Yeah, and I'm going to have you put your hand down just because I think, why don't you put your hand up here because I feel like this is collapsed a little bit, so lift up. And then go ahead and put it up here, belly button, and now try it again. And really like just think, I'm going to fill my stomach with air and push it out. You got it, and then exhale. You got it, that's it. And when you laugh, do you notice how that moves so much, right? So when we laugh, we naturally use our diaphragm to make that happen. But a better way, if you really want to work on this, an easier way to do it is up against the wall, right? You can go like this, so go ahead and try that. Try this wall. Yeah, I would try this wall. And then put your hand on your stomach with your sternum again. And then breathe in. Yeah. And you see a lot more. There you go. Yeah. So when the wall doesn't work, I would take my Do you still dance?
No.
Because I still sing, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's important and enriching in my life. So I think, for all of us who have hobbies and other interests that we've let go of, I always encourage people to see how we can incorporate that into our lives now that are incredibly busy. So, breathing low, deep, to conquer fear. Reflection. For the singer, the human voice is an artist's palette with an infinite amount of color. And singers use that color to create different moods, tones, styles of music. And it's only because of really great marketing that, let's say, a singer like Lady Gaga at the Oscars last year gets up and nails a Sound of Music medley. And everybody in the media acts so shocked. How could she do that? That was so surprising. But in reality, any decent singer should be able to sing in multiple styles. And the very best singers have access to all the inflections and tones. And there's really no magic or mystery about it because as humans, we do this all the time. Day in, day out, change our inflections to communicate. So this is when I ask for a volunteer. Someone who potentially has a small child, maybe like 3-ish, and maybe would you like to come up? They're so cute at that age, so I think it makes this exercise a lot easier. Are you also a singer by any chance? Okay, I will make you sing. So, all right, can you step in a little? Where would do you feel good? Is there a light in your eye from here? Okay, all right. So, what's your name?
Katisha.
Katisha, I'm Julie. Nice to meet you. Too. Welcome. And how old is your little one? 3. Oh, great. And your 3-year-old? What's your 3-year-old's name? Ike. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. So Ike is a boy.
Right.
Okay. Ike is a boy. So did you travel with Ike here or
No.
did you? No. That's nice. See, that's my husband right there. My kids are in Los Angeles right now. We're here and it's wonderful. So enjoy yourself. Okay, so Ike and so he's by himself right now, and you won't see him until Saturday or Sunday, right? Okay. And so when you come in the door, so you're so excited, yes. Yes, what's he gonna say? He's gonna say, that's right. What are you gonna say? How about one night though, you're cooking dinner, okay? Are you a cooker or a chef? Oh, wonderful. So you're cooking dinner, you got the multiple pots going on, and there you go. And you see Ike, and there he is, and he is going for the Sharpie pen that somebody left on the table, and the lid's up. Has that ever happened? So you need to stop him. What are you going to say? Stop! Stop, right? Yeah, that's right. So, very inflection. Way up in the stratosphere, so high up, right? Got really fast. When she wanted to really mean business, what'd she do? She lowered her pitch, right? Stop. That really gets their attention, right? This is a wonderful thing to know. So when we want to communicate affection, when we want to increase our likability, when we want to show love, we start talking really high pitched, right? And when we want to increase our credibility, when we want people to just listen to us, we start talking lower and we slow down. Now, of course, when you talk public speaking, you are not going to talk like